Would your friends be your friends if you treated them the way you treat yourself? Would your friends be your friends if you talked to them, if you spoke to them the way you speak to yourself? You've probably heard the saying, we are our own worst critic, and that is absolutely true of me. That I can be pretty gracious and patient with others, and I have zero grace and zero patience for myself. I frequently expect myself to master something quickly. I expect a level of perfection from myself, and the reality is I never, as you might imagine, I never hit the mark of perfection. Why? Shocker, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect, and yet I act as though I am. I act as though perfection is something that we can reach. Maybe you're like me, that you can say some pretty nasty things to yourself, that if you were to say them to a friend, that they would not likely continue to be your friend unless you promise to never say them again. My guess is you can identify with that. And so that's why this spiritual practice, this spiritual discipline, I think is really important for many of us. And that discipline is being kind to yourself. Why does that matter? Why is that a spiritual discipline? How does that point us to Jesus? Well, first of all, when we are unkind to ourselves, we're basically proclaiming that God screwed up when He made me. That God screwed up when He made you. When we are unkind to ourselves, we're basically saying, like, God, what were you thinking? Okay? When we don't extend the grace that God extends to us, we don't extend that grace to ourselves, it is wrong, it's messed up. So if we want to have a right relationship with God, if we want to be able to receive His grace, if we want to be able to share His grace, we need to be willing to be kind to ourselves. The greatest command, Jesus boils 613 down to 2. Praise God. 613 would be a lot to keep track of. So down to 2, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. As yourself. Our ability to love our neighbor is contingent upon our ability to love ourselves. If we can't love ourselves, eventually our love for others will break down. It will become bitter. It will become judgmental instead of loving. And so we must learn to be kind to ourselves. We must learn to love ourselves. Let me just share an example of how I'm working on this. So recently I started cooking a little bit more in order to try to help Natalie around the house. Normally she cooks and she is fantastic at it. So I'm like, I really don't want to mess with this because this is fantastic. Like, meals are so good all the time. So I said, let me take over some of these meals to help out, to alleviate greater responsibility that you carry. And she agreed to that. And so I started making meals, and kind of unintentionally, I stumbled across this practice that when I make a meal and I take a bite and I'm like, whoa, like that's good. It's not just like, oh, that's pretty good. It's like, that's good? Yeah. I pat myself on the back, right? Like there's the saying, like, don't break your arm patting yourself on the back, and it's used in a negative way. But here's the thing, I'm such a hypercritical person towards myself that I know I need to pat myself on the back. I need those moments where I say, well done, Scott. You did good. It doesn't mean that I think I'm amazing. It doesn't mean that I think I'm a better cook than Natalie, because I know I'm not, and that's not even the point. But the point is in a moment I have learned, in a simple way, I have learned to celebrate me. I've learned to celebrate success. Now what's funny is I say that and I'm like, I really don't want you who are watching this, I don't want you to think I'm arrogant. I don't want you to think I'm prideful. But I know that I am, in this specific situation, I am not. I'm just wanting to learn to be kind to myself. I hope that this week, that there are moments where you learn to be kind to yourself. When you succeed, pat yourself on the back. When you fail, show yourself grace. When things go okay, but they don't turn out exactly the way you thought or wanted them to do, Again, be kind to yourself. I believe that when we are kind to ourselves, when we invite God to create that transformation in us, that we experience the very real presence of God, which is, after all, the point of spiritual disciplines. So, this week, may you be kind to yourself.